Puppeteer is basically setting a magical theatre where instead of moving through your world, the whole world moves around you. And we basically change the scenery in Puppeteer every 5 to 10 minutes, so you never know what's going to come next. It's full of mad Tim Burton, Terry Gilliam kind of strange weirdness. And our hero is basically stolen away to the moon by this evil tyrant king. His soul's been shoved in the body of a puppet. Then he's had his puppet head eaten by the king, thrown away, and he's been left as basically a slave, headless slave. And he finds he has this amazing ability that he can pick up objects and use them as heads, and those heads give him different abilities. So they're also his lives, so you get hit and the head falls right on the ground. You can pick it up. It's just, you know, the 3-second rule with food, right? The same thing. And you can also use those heads in different places to help you on your adventure. And then he's told by this cook, who's actually a witch, that he has to go and steal this pair of magical scissors, which he does, and that's when basically his problems start. For me, when I was growing up, watching Terry Gilliam movies, for instance, Time Bandits, I mean, the weirdness of Time Bandits is absolutely fantastic. You know, you never know where you're going to go in that time stream and stuff. And then Tim Burton, his art direction is absolutely stunning. That very much led into the art direction that I was putting into Puppeteer. And then also the story from Terry Gilliam's side, that sort of weird strangeness of never knowing where you're going to be. And they've been meshed together. But we're a game being made in Japan with a Japanese staff. So it's kind of West meets East. So you get the craziness of Japanese gaming with the really good tight controls of Japanese gaming, and then you get this mad, eccentric Englishman with all his Western influences throwing stuff in. We are basically 70% complete. So for me, that's 70% complete, as in normal games would probably be out there this Christmas. But I'm very, very careful with making sure that we make the best quality as we can for our PlayStation fans. So we will do 100% by Christmas, and then we'll go into a massive focus test, basically, get all the feedback, and then record all the languages next year, and we'll be releasing worldwide at autumn next year. I've been in Japan now for 10 years, so I mean, a lot of my staff sound more Japanese than I am Western, but it's really interesting because when people play Puppeteer, there's a big argument. Some people say, oh, it's a Western game. And then other people say, no, it's a Japanese game. And they basically stand off and it's like fisticuffs at 10 paces. But, and Japanese people look at it and they go, it is Japanese, but I'm not really sure. And they're intrigued by it. And Westerners going, no, it's Western, I think, but it feels Japanese. And I think that's a meshing between, you know, the writing that I put into the game, plus the artistic vision that I put into the game, throwing character sketches at, you know, Japanese character designers who then come back and change it ever so slightly, and then you get this mashup that's going on. There are things that we can't put in because of Western audiences, and things that we would put in if it was a Japanese audience, for instance. You know, our characters have to have 4 fingers, you know, a proper hand, because it's a Japanese game, because otherwise it's a Yakuza reference, and so we wouldn't sell in Japan. I mean, there are those cultural differences, but there are things where I say, let's do this with taiyaki. You know taiyaki, the sort of paste in pastry that the Japanese eat, shape of a fish. And the Japanese just look at me and go, my team look at me and go, you're mad. Why? No, it'll work. I'm telling you, it'll work. So we put it in and they just look at it going, I still don't get it. And then, but when people play it, they go, oh, it's a taiyaki, that's funny, you know. You kind of, so it works well. I've been making games which were all very realistic games. So I made The Getaway in London, finished that, came to Japan, worked with Toyama-san on the Siren series. So we were making very realistic games, and we were chasing technology and doing all of that stuff and putting reflections in people's eyes and nasal hairs and things like that. And it was like, oh, I've had enough. You know, in Japanese, moi, I can't do any more. And it was like, I'm going to make a world which is completely insane, completely from my imagination. And the reason I did that, and why it's selfish, is, well, there's one, because of that, but two was I was finding that my son, who's 8, and we were playing games together, and then he would just go, I'm bored. I've been there, I've seen that before. And we kind of got into this loop in game creation where we'd been doing this technology thing, chasing technology, making these real worlds, and what was lacking was that imagination or inspiration for our kids to actually go, wow, that's awesome, I want to play it. So I basically designed the game so that my son could play it, and I used Sony's money at the same time. So it was incredibly selfish. in the games industry especially, I think this is something that Japan was doing very, very well and forgot to do because they started chasing the Western ideals. I think they're moving back now. When I talk to game directors here in Japan, everybody's going, well, we can't do that. We can't do that. Where's the fun in that? You know, you can't compete. They've got the technology and all that stuff. Let's do the crazy stuff we used to do. There's only so many iterations of the same first-person shooter that you can make before, you know, how real can it get? Unless you're actually physically there in the Star Trek HoloLab, right? I mean, you're not going to do much better than you're doing now. Even in the next generation, I don't see that. You know, it will look amazing. Yeah, of course it will, but it won't be that much different. So as game creators, to sell to gamers who are doing the same thing over and over again, we have to come up with new, exciting, imaginative worlds and creations. There's room for both, definitely. And my studio, Japan studio, is definitely on the other side of that. We're famous for, you know, Ueda-san's work and Toyama-san's work and Loco Roco and Patapon and all those lot of things which are kind of a little bit more eccentric, a little bit crazier. And then we'll leave the God of Wars up to, you know, Santa Monica Studio and Naughty Dog with, you know, their awesome Uncharted series and their new stuff that's coming out.